feature presentation.
Let me see that bong, baby. That bong, ba bong, bong, bong. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, that was beautiful.
I hope I
beautiful.
didn't scar everyone with my singing voice, but I've been singing that since I've been thinking about Bong Joon-ho a lot, probably since
Who
Parasite
doesn't?
ended. And I feel like it's a long time. Well, it hasn't been that long, but it
5
has
years, right? 6
yeah,
years?
I guess that is half a decade. So we've been waiting a long time for this, a new Bong Joon-ho movie. Because today we are reviewing Mickey 17, the new film from Bong Joon-ho, his first film since winning the Academy Award for Parasite. Eric, how you doing?
Matt, I'm tired. I am so tired. I
Yeah.
wish there were multiple versions of me so one could rest, the other one could take over. But that would be a violation, Matt. A violation, and I don't want Mark Ruffalo's Trumpian Kenneth Marshall after me. So
Yes, love that. I'm also feeling a little drained. We've had a busy week, busy weekend. We've kind of been nonstop over the last little while. I had a very we both kind of had a very wrestling filled weekend. Still reeling from John Cena's heel turn, but you guys can listen to all of our experiences at the WWE Elimination Chamber in Toronto on that episode, which is available now for you to listen to and on YouTube and wherever you like to get your podcasts. But there's no John Cena in Mickey 17, but there are many Robert Pattinsons. Eric, where do you want to start? This is going to be spoiler free, everyone. The movie did start previews today as you're listening to this, so it is available for you guys to go watch. But I don't even know where to tackle this first, but
well, you mentioned Parasite, and I think
Yeah.
that's a good place to start, because I think no matter what Bong Joon-ho did after that movie, one, it's going to be compared directly to quality wise, how good it is, and I don't think there's a winning situation for Mickey 17 in that way, because it's not as good as Parasite, but Parasite's a completely different movie. And so then you have to think about it in the context of Bong Joon-ho's career. Do you look at it as, comparing it to the other science fiction films in his career, Okja and Snowpiercer and even The Host? Or do you look at it as his international movies? Then that would limit it to just Okja and Snowpiercer, because this movie does feel not just simply like a greatest hits of Bong Joon-ho's past work, especially within the science fiction realm, but it has his fetishes, his interests, everything from creatures that are slightly off-putting, but you also care about them, translation devices, disgusting food, like all of this stuff kind of has played throughout his entire filmography. He's very consistent with the things that interest him, but tonally his movies are all over the place, and I think that is a tough sell for North American audiences in particular, because they can maybe have that divide if it's subtitled, if it's in Korean, but when it's in English, it almost can be jarring. And Snowpiercer has a cult following. Okja, I think a lot of people didn't know how to react or even navigate, say, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who was so over the top. And this does play in that very broad, Looney Tunes, cartoonish, I don't even say satire, because I think like the movie itself is making the point that we've gone past satire at this level, that we're now in cynicism. Like, this is just purely cynical. It's still funny, but we're at a point where we've abandoned the world. We're colonizing another planet. We're in debt because we started a macaroon company.
Yeah.
We're struggling here.
Former politicians own us because they own companies and just like the class divide and all this kind of stuff that he likes to tackle in his movies
Hypocrisy
too.
is
Yeah.
everywhere because it's a pro-life cult, but yet we dehumanize the main character and the reprints of Mickey throughout the
Hmm.
entire movie. And the first act, I think that is also going to be challenging for people because it is slow, but it also works almost to its benefit as the in-flight movie that you're watching as these characters are traveling 4.5 years to this ice planet, where it does feel almost like, both an in-flight movie, but then also that classic like record scratch, you're wondering how I got here,
Yeah.
narrative that unfolds. But within the context of that, you have Robert Pattinson giving multiple performances that are all very strange, doing the Steve Buscemi Fargo accent, but then also, with Mickey 17 and Mickey 18, it feels like it's the devil and angel on the shoulder kind of thing. It's like what to do or how to, you know, deal with the situation. And, you mentioned the religious angle as well. It's him going through the process of feeling like he's being punished for something he did when he was younger, but it's also so bleak that I think like people don't want to see what we're going through now, basically, especially with politics, because it does feel like a mirror to what is happening, especially in the US. Mark Ruffalo is, as mentioned, playing basically a version of Trump.
Yeah, it's like
And I
Trump
think
and Elon Musk a little bit put
he
together,
does it
right?
better than Sebastian Stan, I have to say. So
Wow, are you saying an Oscar nomination's coming for Mark Ruffalo
I
again?
think he's
He
I
pl
think I
him
think
playing
he's
creepy little
great
weirdos, like creepy assholes, like it is great.
in Poor
Um,
Things in this. Yeah, he's got he has a new era of acting, as comedic scumbags.
yeah, yeah, this one's I mean, I love Bong Joon-ho, and I know you tweeted this out, and I completely agree with you that I don't think he's made a bad movie. Um, and I'll echo a lot of the things you're saying where, we've always praised him for being one of those guys who can teeter that line between, something very dark and serious or have some sort of social commentary while also being zany and funny and kind of flip-flopping between those
In the
2
same
tones.
scene.
Yeah, in the same scene, and yes, that's not going to work for everyone, especially a movie that is made at this budget from a huge giant studio. Like, I definitely understand that they have no idea what to do with this because, like, watching it, I don't think, I think unsuspecting audiences who are maybe saw Parasite and really loved it, um, I think Okja and Snowpiercer are more cult classics than were giant hits, right? Yeah, Okja made at Netflix. It was a big movie for them at the time. I love Okja with every ounce of my soul. And I would say that this is more similar, I guess, to Okja and some of the themes there and kind of the tone and everything than maybe even to Snowpiercer and then his Korean language stuff. But I agree with you that I kind of like it's not a greatest hits, but you can tell the things that he is obsessed with and he drops little things here and there. There's a house that looks like the house from Parasite. You mentioned the kind of technology that is used in Snowpiercer with the translator. You have a cute kind of weird looking creature that is both like that is the crux of the story of and your sympathy towards that otherworldly being, right? And I
It's a
think
metaphor for colonizing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And Okja, not necessarily colonizing, but he's playing with similar themes and using, an otherworldly creature in a similar way. So he's latching on to all these things that he's been obsessed with in these other movies, class divide and all this kind of stuff, and um,
Capitalism and
capitalism and all of that is here. So it does feel like sort of a celebration of everything that he's been interested in his career. There's almost a nod to Memories of Murder. There's all like in a funny way and like in its own way. And he uses sci-fi so interestingly to kind of um as an outlet for social commentary and yeah, he is able to balance all these different tones. And yes, his dialogue can sound stilted and I think a lot of the times when international directors direct English language things like um it does come off as like, okay, it's not their first language. So the way people are delivering dialogue feels unnatural, right? But then I feel like it kind of works, and especially when you're playing in sci-fi and stuff like that as well, where it doesn't necessarily have to feel realistic.
And absurdity,
And
right? Like,
yes, and exactly when he has this absurd tone throughout it, that dialogue can work. And I think
because it's like
Yorgos
Starship Troopers, right? Like
yeah,
Paul Verhoeven, like it
yes,
is an international filmmaker looking at America
America,
basically,
yes,
or
exactly.
the rest of the world, and seeing it through their lens. And so when you're watching this, like the tone, the shifts in the tone, and the play between drama and comedy and absurdity and tragedy and melodrama, like it's all over the place. But I think Bong Joon-ho has such a control over that when, we've even mentioned like someone like Yorgos Lanthimos,
That's
where,
who I was gonna bring up. Yeah, that's
or
exactly it.
even M. Night Shyamalan. Like I think like there are guys out there that are doing this, um, that know how to play within this sandbox. I think Bong Joon-ho, for me, is basically the heir to Steven Spielberg at this point, because he's making these movies that feel like they're not just one thing, but they're also prestigious. They're also filled with world building. They feel epic in scale. They're made for the theater. Even Okja, watching Okja theatrically when we saw it at the Lightbox,
Yeah.
all of his movies have this grand scale to them. Even something as small as like Mother still has both the comedic elements and the cinematic elements interwoven into it. And you really do feel for Mickey's plight. You feel for the creepers, as they're called in the film. Denis Villeneuve's another guy as well. Like I was thinking about the design of the creepers, in that like the face almost looks like the legs of the Arrival
In the Arrival
aliens.
aliens. Yeah, yeah.
And so, there are certain directors that are really good at creating an entire world from scratch. And Denis Villeneuve has done that with Dune, obviously. And then, you have Bong Joon-ho doing it. And so, you look at these guys and they're trying to explore where we are now, but also like it felt cathartic watching this movie, because like in the real world, the people that are doing what they're doing and making things worse for everyone around them are not going to be held accountable. They're
Where
just
in
not.
this they can be.
They can
Yeah.
be. And that makes this movie such a joy to watch,
The
because it
last
is
act is
escapist
very good.
entertainment. Oh,
Yeah.
the whole movie's great. Like
Yeah.
so we saw this movie as we're recording this. We saw this on Monday at the Scotiabank Theater in IMAX. I really liked it. Like I really liked it a
Same,
lot.
yeah.
But then I woke up the next morning and I kept thinking about it. Like the thing that I love the most about, there's a dinner sequence in this film. Darius Kanji is the cinematographer who shot David Fincher's Seven, Michael Haneke's Amore, one of the best to ever do it. That sequence alone is amazing.
It is
But
great.
the thing that I love about this movie, and the antithesis of, I think, what this film is saying, is that it's holding, religious zealous to, showing their hypocrisy. Like, I love the fact that these people are pro-life, but they're taking Mickey and saying to him, we can use and abuse you. You're expendable, the expendable program, to the
Mhm.
point where the value of life for one person is considered high, but his value of life is low. And that hypocrisy, I think, is exposed within the Mark Ruffalo character and what he's doing, and Toni Collette as his
Wanting
wife
to
as
make a
well.
sauce.
Oh, Bong Joon-ho has the sauce. This movie has the sauce. It is such a solid film. It's gonna bomb. It's gonna do
Oh, I know. And people are gonna hate it. It's gonna bomb. But like, I think the people who will love it will really love it. And I think those are the people who loved Okja and the people who loved Snowpiercer
yeah.
and things like that. And if you're a fan of his work, yes, this isn't Parasite. It's not Parasite. I don't know if anything will be Parasite. But if you liked Okja and really liked Snowpiercer, I feel like it is along those lines of being just really, like you said, solid popcorn entertainment that also has something to say and that can be something unlike anything you're going to watch this year, right? It is a weird movie. Robert Pattinson, certified weirdo. He's amazing. I think his multiple roles in this and playing against himself, um, that guy is spectacular. I really do believe that. Like, I think he is, from what he has come from Twilight, of then going, I am only going to work with interesting, weird directors and like, or just like interesting directors, I guess, and a lot of weird directors, and then make these like these. I'm going to say interesting and weird a lot because I really do find that he is one of those guys where, like, even in the interviews before this, saying he wanted to be like Steve-O from Jackass and stuff like that, or he leaned on like a Ren and Stimpy thing is what he talked about, I
Yeah.
feel like. And like, it's like, you can see it in the movie and it is so strange. And like, there are so many choices where you're just like, this isn't going to work for everyone, but for some reason, because I just trust Bong Joon-ho, and you let it kind of wash over you, and you're ready to laugh. And then the next scene, you're like, oh, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
and then like, and I think he can just go between those so well. And Robert Pattinson just executes that. And like Ruffalo, yeah. Is it on the nose? Is it very, yes, but I think it's blunt. It's in your face. But like, I
He's
feel
so funny.
like you said, we're beyond satire, right? So the absurdity of it all, especially like you said, someone who is on the outside of it looking in and sees the absurdity of the real world, what's happening, and how you can use sci-fi to tell that story and then make it both funny and disturbing and impactful, I think is great. I think Steven Yeun is amazing.
Oh, he's such a dirtbag. Like,
Yeah.
he's like the perfect dirtbag friend, and I think everybody's had one of these people in their lives where they're friendly with some. Oh, oh no. They're friendly with somebody, but then at the same time, they're not really benefiting, and in fact, like, they're the ones that are suffering through it, and the friends taking advantage of them. And you know Steven Yeun is just another, talk about like Robert Pattinson. Steven Yeun's just like one of those guys that's like, everything he's in, I love this guy in. Like,
Mhm.
Burning, he's amazing. Minari, like every time he pops up in something, whether it's a leading role or
He's great and
supporting,
Invincible. Like,
Invincible, like
yeah.
he really is one of the best. Like, those two guys are amazing. I think Naomi Ackie's a wonderful.
Yeah.
Toni Collette is so much fun. Like, all of these actors, they are giving it their all, and it, not that it's fearless, but like, I think there's an amount of understanding that they're working with somebody that is going to shape their performance in a way that's going to work. And I can't imagine what it's like shooting some of those scenes and not knowing like how it'll play out ultimately, but they trusted in Bong Joon-ho, and what you get here is such a delightful, over the top, absurd movie. And I mentioned the Spielberg thing. Like, we're beyond the satire of like the days of like when Paul Verhoeven was making
Sure.
RoboCop, right? Or even Starship Troopers. And I'm sure Starship Troopers is going to be a point of comparison for this movie in some ways. But there are moments in this that do feel like they're straight out of Starship Troopers. Like, there's a scene where Pattinson is enlisting or signing up to be a part of the program, and then it weirdly shifts into this exposition bit, but as like a news segment. And that scene is so funny, but also really clever in terms of how it brings in the whole cult of personality, and the one and only Kenneth Marshall, and even he has like this weird talk show that reminded me of Frank D'Angelo's show, Being Frank, at one point. There's a lot of little bits and bobs in here that I think, like, even on a second viewing you'll appreciate even more. But there are a whole, like that dinner sequence, you know referencing this painkiller, Purple Joe. Like, there
Yeah.
are all these things that feel like, okay, this feels very reactionary to the world we're living in now, and it is based on a book as well. But it just, that is going to probably turn some people off, just because it's like, oh, I already live in this reality that is hellish. Why would I want to escape to a world that's just as bleak? And maybe this is somewhere where we're going.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, there's even a throwaway line in that same sequence you were talking about. There's a sandstorm that happens, and you hear on the overhead speaker being like, "Oh, if you need to buy like protective equipment or masks, you get a discount because you're in like." So the capitalistic stuff, I think, is even in little throwaway lines and stuff like that. And obviously, it's used a lot. And just being humanity being expendable to these people in general, right? Of Mickey just being kind of a metaphor for just basically everyone, and just testing things on him and just putting through hell. And then yeah, I really love the creepers too. Like I think it just completely I mean, I fell in love with Okja and that design, and I think they just making that basically an alien, even more alien looking version of Okja is kind of what the creepers are in
And
this
you care
movie, and
about them too. Like
really
that's
do.
the
It does
thing.
a good job with it, with the
Th-
babies and
yeah.
yeah.
There's a moment in this where something awful happens at the hands of Toni Collette in one moment, and I I don't think there's any other filmmaker that can make you care about a
I think
CGI
I know what
VFX.
talking yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, and there's a very similar scene in Okja where a very
Yeah.
similar thing happens.
Oh, the whole end
Um,
of Okja is just you're just left devastated emotionally. Like you're just like Okja to me, Okja and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are the two movies where it's like these are
Almost Turned You
con-
Vegan.
yeah, they're convincing me to
Yeah.
go vegan. And this makes you care about creatures that are, Tony Collette calls them basically they look like croissants dipped in shit. Uh and it, and you really do feel for them, like they are, a metaphor to, the indigenous population. They're a metaphor to, the first explorers coming to a new land and colonizing and enslaving and using up the resources. And there's even conversations about how we mass produce or overuse things. And it's just really it's got so much on its mind that I think, like, watching it the first time, you're taken back by the tone. I wouldn't be surprised if you were to watch it again and you would just get those little moments, like even just like Pattinson's performances, you know, in just like little moments where he'll say like a line like "do it," like
Yeah.
the again, like the devil and the angel on the shoulders kind of thing. But it's interesting. I saw someone mention that it's like sci-fi challengers in a way as well. Like it has kind of like it's not as sexy, but like it has like an element of sensuality to it as well. Like it feels very visceral at times. And like the VFX and the production design in this movie is next to none. Like it is beautifully made. And it's just, yeah, it's just a shame that I think like it kind of is being thrown to the wayside by Warner Brothers, but I also understand
That they didn't know
what.
what to do with it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do with this.
Yeah, it's a hard sell, right? Like it uh like you're obviously gonna lean in from the director of Parasite because he won Best Picture for that. And but again, if you haven't seen his other stuff, I feel like people are gonna go, "What the fuck is this?" Like, and
And the
it
voiceover too. I think the
the vo-
voiceover will annoy a lot of people,
yeah.
and that
There
voice.
is some clunky exposition, don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. Like, I think in the first act especially, and then throughout, there is some kind of, exposition heavy dialogue that could have been a studio note. I know Bong Joon-ho's talked about, I think that this was his final cut, and he did have final cut on the movie and stuff like that too, which might be why they don't know what to do with it because they couldn't tell him to change it and make it more palatable. But you gotta know what you're getting into when you hired the guy after, Parasite, right? Like, and even seeing his other English language stuff. So, yeah, I really don't. I get it too. Like, it's a huge studio that is in kind of a flux state too, with Joker 2 bombing and not having some big, having some fumbles with their theatrical thing. So if they take another fumble with this, which I
they
feel
will.
like they will,
They'll take the loss.
especially when you spend over $100 million on it, right? Like,
They'll
I don't
recoup with
I don't know if
Superman.
they just thought it would be more accessible than it is, and I'm not saying it's not. I just think that the tonal stuff, and it does take its time. It's 2.5 hours. It's it does take a while to get going. We don't get the title drop until like 45 minutes into the
Oh,
movie.
beautiful,
I love it.
beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. When it finally popped up, I'm like, oh fuck, we're like 50 minutes into this movie. And a movie's taking its time when it does that, right? So I do think, like, does it lull in the middle? I don't think so, but I could see people, like, it does take its time, but
You
I
have to
really do.
acclimatize to it.
Yeah, and I do think that it picks up towards the end, and I do think that the whole movie is great, but the last act I think is very strong, where um even me, I was like, I don't know if I'm enjoying this as much as I enjoyed Okja or Snowpiercer even. And then ultimately, similarly to you, waking up and thinking about it more, I think it's alongside Okja. I think maybe a little bit better than Snowpiercer for me. Snowpiercer is more pure entertainment. Even though I still think that that movie says a lot of interesting things too, but
But it's
um,
almost closer to Mickey 17 and the
yeah,
dystopian aspect of it
totally.
all, and also, like, the bug bars and, like, the
It is
food
like
and
Okja and Snowpiercer put
yeah,
together.
and the host too, like,
Yeah, and the host,
like,
yeah.
he's a creature freak,
Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho, in the same way that, as I mentioned, Denis Villeneuve is, where, like, this isn't Dune for Warner Brothers. This is not gonna do the Dune. This is just going to become a cult film over time. Like, this will be a movie that will find its audience. Bong heads will be going out that weekend to support him. But I think, like, if people that saw Parasite, that really like Parasite because it won the Oscar and were open to that, and then are gonna go and see this as the follow-up, having not seen Snowpiercer or Okja or Memories of Murder, The Host, or any of his other films, it might be a harder sell. And like you said, like that, like, I think, like, that's hurt someone like M. Night Shyamalan's filmography,
Yeah.
like, that's where
Where
people are getting used to it now, or Yorgos Lanthimos, where people, it like took them a while to
and
acclimatize
even then
to
it's
that.
still like you said,
Still
it's an
niche.
yeah, it is niche. Like their style is for North Americans and English speaking people. It's
Even though M. Night Shyamalan's American, like, it's yeah.
that's a great point, but M. Night going the B movie route and going with some absurdist dialogue and a satirical kind of tone to his stuff as well, and kind of I think that's always going to be off-putting to some people, and I feel like people just it's you mentioned Starship Troopers and Paul Verhoeven's satirical work too, where I think even when those movies came out, people didn't really get it
They
either.
got
Like,
RoboCop.
yeah, but
But Starship Troopers took time because, like, the thing that everybody said when that movie came out was that the acting was bad. And it's like, well, the point is that everybody's supposed to kind of be bad in this. And, like, the
yeah.
the idea that, oh, the villains of the film are the humans.
Mhm.
It's not the monsters. We're going to their planets
Yeah.
and colonizing them. And, like, when Neil Patrick Harris shows up at the end dressed in SS gear, like, that's the whole point of the movie. And over time, Starship Troopers has become, I think, one of the great satires and one of the great movies of the 90s. It's still effective, it still works, it's still unbelievably funny, sometimes extremely disturbing. Um, I think Mickey 17 might have a similar trajectory where it won't land theatrically, but over, maybe the next decade or so, it will be heralded. It's coming after Parasite, and I think, like, if it came after, like, say, Mother or Memories of Murder or even The Host, it might have fared better, but because it's in the shadow of such a monolith of a movie, that it's like you're going to be disappointed no matter what. And that's the thing with that, and I think it's unfair. Do I think it's as good as Parasite? No, absolutely not. But do I think it's another great film in Bong Joon-ho's filmography? Yeah. I'm so happy that he got to make this movie. He got to make that bank and make the film he wanted
Oh,
to.
yeah, I'm thrilled that he tricked Warner Brothers into letting him make
Yeah.
this for sure. Like, that's what winning an Oscar will do, right? Like, who knows with Sean Baker winning for Honora, how someone's gonna give a dump truck of money to him and see what he comes up with, right? Like, and it's not always going to work financially, but sometimes we're rewarded with something weird and interesting on a giant scale that we wouldn't be able to get if that person didn't win an Oscar, right?
Yeah.
And even if it's a colossal failure, I don't think this will put him into director jail or anything, because he'll just go make another Korean language movie on a much smaller budget and it'll be fantastic probably, right?
Yeah.
And then someone will give him, with Netflix and I forget, Snowpiercer was
No,
Lionsgate?
it
No.
was the Weinstein Company, because
Okay, at
Harvey
the time,
Weinstein was
yeah.
meddling with the film. Raven was
Right.
the company that released it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, someone I think will, you know, maybe it'll have to be on a smaller budget again. I don't even know. Like, I'm sure Netflix gave him a dump truck of money for Okja as well, too, right? But
Yeah.
it was only 50 million, where it's less than half of what he spent on this movie, right? But I hope it does well. I feel like it will find an audience as well. I think it is very funny. It has some interesting things to say. I think it is a really cool look at everything that this man has been interested in over his career, kind of distilled in a fun movie. And that's kind of a really cool thing. And it's not like a swan song or anything. It's just him going, these are all the things I've been obsessed with. I'm going to put them into one movie because I might not get this chance again,
Yeah.
maybe. And I think that's cool.
You're
So,
giving me how much?
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Here's every weird thing I'm obsessed with. And I'm going to put it into one movie, and we'll see how that goes. And I'll be very curious to see how that goes. So,
Even the little touches in this movie, like the actual reprinting and
yep.
how the body is pulled back into the device, and then like
Having
that
to reprint a part or whatever, because yeah.
that those little touches, it makes the world feel somewhat believable, or you can buy into it because of those things, because you can not relate to them, but it's like you understand, like, there are things in this world that are familiar to our own, and like stuff like that, like those little touches I think are really appreciated when it comes to the world building of it all. And as a culmination of everything he's done up until now, it's like, it's just happy that, like, I think we're just both happy that this movie exists and that it was made and that
Yeah.
he got away with it.
That's exactly how I feel. It's almost like I can't believe that they gave him $120 million to make this. So I think we're all lucky for bong heads out there, like who
Bong
love.
Bros.
Yeah, the bong bros are thrilled. It's just when you put this in Cineplex and Joe Schmo and Jane Schmo and go see it, I just don't know if it's really going to land with audiences, which is a bummer. But you hope then maybe some unsuspecting people fall into it and then go, oh, I've never seen something like this before. It's weird and wonderful. And then you find a bunch of people who also become bong bros. So yeah.
Yeah, and just moving it as well. Like, I think like that kind of hurt it a little bit in terms of like word of mouth, or feeling as though like there was something wrong with the movie, and there's nothing
Because
wrong
it
with
got
the
almost
film.
punted like an entire year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it switched recently with Sinners, because Sinners was supposed to open at the beginning of March, and now it's opening in April. So they those two movies switch spots. But going back quickly to Robert Pattinson, I think we both kind of got on his wavelength, or started to like move the Twilight movies aside with The Rover. I think The Rover was our first
I
film
love
of
The
his
Rover.
that
Yeah.
he was like, oh, this guy, like, obviously he had worked with
Another
David
weird movie.
Cronenberg and um beforehand with Cosmopolis, but you look at what he's done, like he's working with people like Bong Joon-ho, Claire Denis, Robert Eggers. He's got the Lynn Ramsey movie coming up this year. He's in another film called The Drama. He's just picking really interesting stuff, and he can still be Batman and he can still do the studio thing, but it's almost like the studio thing is like, how can I find like the weirdest studio movie possible?
Yeah, which he did here, right?
And it's amazing. And like, he does seem like someone that he really wants to help the filmmaker get their movies made.
Exactly, and I think because he used his cachet from Twilight for all of that, right? And
And
like,
Kristen
yeah,
Stewart does that too, which is
and
great.
they both have been amazing since leaving Twilight behind, right? Like, and I think they both took that and go, okay, I'm gonna do what I enjoy and work with people I find interesting, and not just go the route they could have done, which is just doing the big blockbuster movies and making a ton of money, right? And
Yeah.
like some of these, I'm sure he makes no money. Like I don't know if he made any money working with Cronenberg or David Michaud, and like at the kind of the beginning of his post Twilight career. But yeah, I agree with you. The Rover was, I didn't love Cosmopolis, but I did find it an interesting thing to do right after, or actually during, those last Twilight movies coming out.
Good
And
Time
then,
was probably the film that really, like, put him in, like, a new level of, like,
yeah,
indie
but
cred.
even going back and watching Childhood of a Leader, which he did with Brady Corbet, right?
Yeah.
Like, and like,
He's an
um,
early adopter.
he really is, man. Like, yeah, The Rover, David Michaud's The Rover is a fun, weird, maybe not fun's the right word, but a weird little movie that I don't think people talk about or think about anymore at all. That I really like. Childhood of a Leader's great. Lost City of Z, like High Life, and you're going into like the Lighthouse. Like, look at all these people he's worked with, and obviously then going into big studio stuff like working with Nolan on Tenet, and then the Batman now, and it's he's
But he's
making
still doing
really.
little stuff too, right? Like, he's not sacrificing smaller movies and just, like, using them as a calling card or a launch pad into bigger stuff, you know? Like, he's going and finding the weird things.
Yeah, love it, love it. I definitely think this will be a movie that, if you've liked Bong Joon-ho's stuff, you will probably like this. Probably. That's not
Yeah.
saying like your brother didn't vibe with it, and he's liked
But he
Bong stuff.
appreciated, though. I
But
think,
yeah,
like, he
he
will take
appreciates the big
anything that
swing. Yeah.
swings, yeah.
Yeah, which I will always champion as well. Like, I'd rather see something that swings for the fences and doesn't work for me than a middle of the road thing, right? Which this
Yeah.
could be that for people, but at least we have these movies coming out that do swing for the fence and are weird. And even if it's not your tone or doesn't vibe with you, or you hated it or whatever, but I hope you can appreciate it more than kind of just whatever bland thing that comes out. So I do think if you liked Okja, if you like Snowpiercer, I think you will vibe with this. I think I really, really enjoyed it. And I will down the line revisit his filmography, and I'll be looking forward to watching this again.
And Memories of Murder, like, if you have not seen that
Yeah.
movie, like, obviously Parasite is a masterpiece, but, like, he has both that and Memories of a Murder. I mean, that is insane. Like,
Yeah.
just those 2 movies alone,
Being able to make those
incredible.
movies and then things like this is just blows my mind, really.
Yeah, he
Like,
really is, like, you know, like, he is probably my top, like, in my top 5 of filmmakers working today, and I am there every time
and
when he announces a project.
the Spielberg comparison, I think, is apt, and I know that is high praise. But like being able to make something like Parasite or Memories of a Murder, but then make something that's a little bit more popcorn entertainment, but then still trying to say something in it, I think is an apt comparison as well too,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's
And
not
from it,
necessarily like Jaws or Jurassic
no,
Park
no,
or
no, yeah.
Schindler's List, but he can make
I'm sure
Parasite.
he could make something like that if he wanted to, but he
Yeah.
just likes to be a little bit weirder. So
Oh, he's a weird boy. But no, he makes Parasite, and then he makes Mickey 17, you know, like, this is somebody that feels like they're on this amazing streak. Like, everything that he has done, there's not a bad movie in his filmography. There really isn't. And that is so rare to do, you know. Like, there are movies of his I like more than others, but
sure.
he hasn't really made anything bad. And he, like, his voice is there, like, it's consistent, and it just feels like he's operating in that level right now of a filmmaker. Like, I said Spielberg, but even like when Coppola was in the 70s, you know, and literally just making one banger after another with the Godfather films and The Conversation and Apocalypse Now. Like, he's just literally going from one great film to another. And you know, he's talking about recently how he's wanting to make a horror film that he's had an idea of since the early 2000s, and also he wants to make an animated film. Like, I'm just like, whatever he does, give him the money. Just let him make what he wants. And this is where it's like, I wish, like, not that I like, this is where, like, almost like it goes against everything that he believes in, but this is where I wish I was like a billionaire or a millionaire, because I would give this guy whatever he wanted financially to go and make what he is doing, because like that's where it's like, I don't care if it's not going to make money. It's just like, go and make this thing that'll make me happy to watch, you know?
Absolutely. I'm really interested to see what happens with that HBO Parasite series. Like, I know it's kind of in not development hell. Like, he has talked about during the press rounds for this that it's still in development at HBO. Adam McKay was supposed to be working on it, and
Well,
I think
Ruffalo too is
yeah,
supposed to be a lead
yeah, and Tilda
in the show.
Swinton, right?
Yeah.
So like two people that he's obviously worked with. I think Tilda Swinton has left the project. Ruffalo is still attached, but um I'd be really interested to see what that is. And I think he was supposed to like be involved in it, but maybe not throughout the whole series. But I'd be really curious to see what that turns into. And um, yeah, I don't know whatever he's gonna do next. So I know he's talked about. Are those the two projects he's talked about? Yeah,
Yeah.
animated project. Yeah, I'm looking right now to see.
And
Um,
there's something like with like a horror movie that takes place in a train.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, man, he's the best. I can't wait. Definitely check it out if you're even remotely interested. And I hope you guys really do enjoy it, because I don't know if we're gonna get another $120 million Bong
Never.
Joon-ho
Well,
movie.
never again. Never again. But you
I
know
hope
what?
we do, but like,
Cheers. Cheers to
yeah.
Bong, you know?
Yeah, spend that money, get that money. All right, everyone. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. We have some other stuff we would love for you guys to go listen to right now. We have a review for Daredevil Born Again, as well as a discussion on the press conference that Eric and I attended. We also have our big episode about WWE Elimination Chamber in Toronto. Eric and I and Eric's brother Kyle and my friend Ryan had a ridiculously fun night there, and talked about all of our shenanigans on that episode. So go check that out as well. Eric has some interviews for Seven Veils that will be out on Friday the 6th. 7th. Thank you. With Amanda Seyfried and Adam Begoyan. So please go check out those, and you can find all of our stuff over on our letterbox, which is Untitled_movies, or you can find them on all of our socials, which is at Matt Rohrbecker, at EM6211, or Eric Marchin. I think that's all I have to plug right now. Eric, have a great time in the UK.
I mean, I'm not leaving just yet.
I know, but by the time this comes out, I don't know if we'll have another episode next week. Maybe we will.
I think we will with a certain state.
Oh yeah, we will. Okay, yeah. Okay, until next time.
Let me see that bong, baby. That bong, 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 bong.
Who did it better? Let us know in the comments. Bye, everybody.